It was late. Like really late. The kind of late where the whole apartment building is quiet, and you can almost hear the hum of the fridge in the kitchen. I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling just like I had been for the past week. Sleep wasn't happening, and it wasn't because of stress from work or anything normal like that. It was because I kept waking up in weird places. I'd wake up on the sofa in the living room, bundled in a blanket I didn't remember grabbing. Or sometimes, even worse, in the hallway leaning against the wall. A couple of times I even found myself standing by the front door just staring at it. My friends thought it was just stress or maybe I was just tossing and turning a lot. But it felt different. It felt like I was actually doing things in my sleep, moving around, exploring my own apartment like a ghost. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Just some weird sleepwalking. But the problem was I couldn't remember anything. No dreams, no half-conscious thoughts. Just waking up in a new spot, feeling a little creeped out. That's when I decided I needed to get a sleep camera. I saw them online, little cameras that record you while you sleep. People use them for all sorts of things. To check if they snore or talk in their sleep, or to see if they sleepwalk. It seemed like the only way to figure out what was really going on. I ordered one online and it arrived super fast in just a couple of days. It was a small black camera, easy to set up. I set it up on my bookshelf, aimed right at my bed. I made sure it was angled perfectly so it would catch me no matter where I moved. I even tested it, walking around the room a bit just to make sure I was in frame. It felt a little weird having a camera watching me all night, but I was more desperate to know what was happening than I was uncomfortable. That night I got into bed a little nervous but also excited. This was it. Finally, I was going to get some answers. I hit record on the camera, watched the little red light blink, and then tried to relax. It took a while to fall asleep knowing it was there watching. But eventually I drifted off. The next morning I woke up in my bed. Exactly where I fell asleep. No strange new locations. My heart gave a little leap. Maybe the camera had helped. Maybe just knowing it was there stopped the sleepwalking. But then I remembered the camera. I jumped out of bed, grabbed it, and started playing back the footage. Most of it was just me lying still, sleeping. Hour after hour of boring footage. I started fast-forwarding, looking for any movement, any sleepwalking. And then I saw it. I was definitely moving. But it wasn't just sleepwalking. It was something else. I stopped the footage and rewound it. My heart started pounding against my ribs hard. Because in the dim light of my bedroom on the screen I saw myself sitting up in bed. My eyes were open, looking towards the corner of the room. And then my lips started moving. I was talking. Not mumbling, but actually talking. To someone. But there was no one there. At least not that I could see. And as I watched my on-screen self, my own breath caught in my throat. Because then my head tilted slightly like I was listening. And for a split second, a chilling, impossible split second, it looked like my lips were moving, forming a response. Like I was talking back. To someone who wasn't there. I had to watch it again. And again. Each time my stomach twisted into a tighter knot. It wasn't just mumbling. My lips were clearly forming words. My head was tilting as if in conversation. But the room was empty. The corner of the room where I was looking was just a wall. Nothing else. My mind raced. Was it a trick of the light? Some kind of weird lens flare? I rewinded and paused, pixel by pixel, looking for any explanation. A shadow? A reflection? But no. It was clear. I was looking at something. I was talking to something. And that something wasn't visible on the camera. I started to feel a chill despite the warm room. The kind of chill that sinks right into your bones. This wasn't just me sleepwalking. This was different. This was active. And the idea that I was having a conversation, a full-blown dialogue, with an invisible presence while I was completely unaware was terrifying. Sleep didn't come easily the next night. I kept thinking about the footage. My own face, calm but engaged, talking to nothing. Felt like watching a stranger. Or worse, watching myself become a stranger. I even moved the camera to a different spot, just in case the angle was somehow playing tricks on me. I aimed it slightly wider, hoping to capture more of the room, more of whatever wasn't there. The next morning, I woke up feeling exhausted. The same exhaustion I'd been feeling for weeks now. I rushed to the camera, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I downloaded the footage to my laptop, my hands shaking slightly. I skipped through the hours of me lying still. And there it was again. Around 2 a.m. the footage showed me sitting up just like before. My eyes were open. My head turned towards the same corner. And then I started talking. But this time it was clearer. I could almost make out some of the words. It was like I was answering questions. And then my head tilted. And I seemed to listen. But then something new happened. Something that made me gasp out loud. A choked sound in the quiet apartment. My right hand slowly lifted. It wasn't flailing or confused. It was deliberate. And it slowly, gently reached out into the empty air as if to touch someone. Someone standing right there in the corner of my room. My entire body felt cold. This wasn't just me talking to myself in my sleep. This was interaction. This was a response. And whatever or whoever I was talking to, they were close enough to touch. Close enough for me to reach out and try to connect with them. I knew then with a terrible certainty that I wasn't alone in my apartment at night. And whatever this presence was, it was getting closer. It was interacting with me. And the thought of what I might do or say or even touch next, while completely unaware, filled me with a fear far deeper than any sleepwalking ever could. The image of my hand reaching out into empty air was seared into my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What was I reaching for? What was there? The thought made my skin crawl. It wasn't just my imagination anymore. The camera was undeniable proof. I knew I had to tell someone. But who? My friends already thought I was a bit unhinged with my sleepwalking stories. How was I going to explain that my sleep camera caught me having a conversation with an invisible entity? They'd think I needed a shrink or maybe an exorcist. So I couldn't keep it to myself. I picked up my phone and called my best friend, Ollie. He's always been the logical one, the one who looks for rational explanations. I figured if anyone could help me make sense of this, it would be him. "Hey, what's up? You sound weird," Ollie said as soon as he picked up. I took a deep breath. "Ollie, something really strange is happening. Beyond the sleepwalking." I tried to explain it calmly, rationally, but my voice kept shaking. I told him about setting up the camera, about the first night's footage of me talking to nothing. Then I told him about last night, about my hand reaching out. I could hear his silence on the other end of the line. A long, uncomfortable silence. "Look, man," he finally said, his voice hesitant. "Are you sure you're getting enough sleep? Maybe you're just really stressed. And your mind is playing tricks on you in the dark." "Ollie, I saw it. My own hand reaching out." I practically yelled, my frustration boiling over. "It's right there in the footage." He finally agreed to come over. He said he'd bring some snacks, probably hoping to calm me down. I spent the time before he arrived pacing my apartment, constantly glancing at the corner of my room where I kept seeing myself interacting with the invisible. The apartment, which always felt safe, now felt like a stage for something I couldn't comprehend. When Ollie arrived, he tried to keep a light tone, cracking jokes, but I could see the concern in his eyes. I immediately led him to my laptop and pulled up the footage from the past 2 nights. I showed him the first clip where I was just talking. He watched, his brow furrowed. "Wait, that's odd," he admitted, looking at my on-screen self. "You definitely look like you're having a chat with someone." Then I played the second clip, the one from last night. The one where my hand reached out. Ollie leaned closer to the screen, his joking demeanor completely gone. He watched my on-screen self, then the empty corner, then my hand extending. His jaw slowly dropped. "Dude," he finally whispered, his voice barely audible. He looked from the screen to the actual corner of my room, then back to me, his eyes wide. What the hell was that? I shrugged, a cold knot forming in my stomach. "That's what I'm trying to figure out, Ollie. That's what I'm terrified of." The look on his face confirmed it. He didn't think I was crazy anymore. He saw it. He believed me. But that didn't make me feel any better. Because now the terrifying truth was out there, shared between us. And neither of us had any idea what to do about it. The invisible presence in my room was real. And it was interacting with me in ways I couldn't explain. Ollie was genuinely spooked. I could see it in his eyes, the way he kept glancing at the corner of the room even after we'd closed the laptop. We sat in silence for a long time, the usual comfortable quiet of my apartment now replaced by a thick, oppressive tension. "Okay," Ollie finally said, his voice low. "So, you're talking to something, and it's there." He rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit. "Have you felt anything? Like cold spots or a smell or anything?" I thought about it. Just the exhaustion. And the feeling of being watched even when I'm awake. Like, right now. I shivered despite myself. "Right," he muttered. "Hey, this is way beyond just sleepwalking." He then started suggesting all sorts of rational ideas, even though I knew he was grasping at straws. Could it be a prank? Someone with a laser pointer? A reflection from outside? I shook my head. No. The way I'm reacting, the way I'm talking, it's too specific. And the hand reaching out, that's not a reflection. Ollie suggested we try to figure out what I was saying. Can we try to enhance the audio? Maybe slow it down? See if we can hear what you're actually saying or if there's another voice responding. The idea made my stomach churn. Hearing my own voice talk to nothing was bad enough. Hearing an actual response from something I couldn't see was terrifying. But he was right. We had to try. We spent the next few hours huddled over my laptop, trying different audio software Ollie had on his phone. It was hard. The quality was poor, just me talking in my sleep, faint and muffled. But we isolated moments, playing them back repeatedly. Most of it was unintelligible murmuring. But then, on the clip where my hand reached out, we heard it. Faint, like a whisper barely caught by the microphone. My voice, sleepy but clear, said, "Don't worry. I'm here." Ollie and I froze. We looked at each other, our eyes wide. I said that. "Don't worry. I'm here." Who was I comforting? And why? Then we kept playing. After my voice, there was a tiny, almost imperceptible sound. A soft, almost childlike sigh. So faint it could have been static, but it was right after my words. A response. A sigh of relief, perhaps? The thought that I was comforting an invisible presence, that it might be distressed, somehow made it even more unnerving. It wasn't just a random spirit. It was something I was interacting with on a personal level. And it seemed to be a presence that needed comforting. "This is getting serious," Ollie said, his voice tight. "We need to figure out what's going on. Or before something else happens." He didn't elaborate on something else, but we both knew what he meant. The sleepwalking was becoming more than just a physical phenomenon. It was a doorway to an unknown interaction, and I was standing right in the middle of it. The childlike sigh, "Don't worry, I'm here." Those words and that faint sound replayed in my mind over and over. It wasn't just spooky. It was heartbreaking in a way, like I was talking to something truly lost and scared, but still terrifying. Ollie and I decided we needed more evidence. Clear audio. So the next night we set up a proper audio recorder in my room, not just relying on the camera's built-in mic. We even opened a window slightly, hoping to pick up any subtle atmospheric changes. It felt like we were setting up a trap and I was the bait. Falling asleep was even harder than before. Every creak of the building, every rustle of the leaves outside made me jump. I kept picturing the invisible presence standing in the corner waiting for me to drift off. I tried to stay awake to fight it, but eventually exhaustion won. I woke up exactly where I'd fallen asleep again. No sleepwalking. My heart leaped with a flicker of hope. Maybe Ollie being there or the extra equipment had deterred it, but then I remembered the audio recorder. I grabbed it, and Ollie, who had crashed on my living room sofa, quickly woke up. We rushed to my laptop, downloaded the new audio file, and put on headphones. This time the audio was much clearer. We could hear my breathing, the distant sounds of the city, and then around 2:15 a.m., the unmistakable sound of my bed creaking as I sat up. We could hear my sleepy voice. "You're cold, aren't you?" I heard myself say. My voice was gentle, almost maternal. Then unmistakably, a faint, wispy voice like a child's breath seemed to whisper, "Yes." My hand flew to my mouth, stifling a gasp. Ollie stiffened beside me, his eyes wide, fixed on the waveform. "It's okay," my voice continued. "I'll keep you warm." And then a tiny, almost imperceptible thump, like something small and light had been placed on the bed beside me. This was followed by a very distinct, soft hum. A lullaby. My own voice, humming a soft, wordless tune. The humming went on for several minutes, then slowly faded as I lay back down. The recording continued, just my breathing, until morning. We ripped off the headphones, our faces pale. "You were humming a lullaby," Ollie whispered, his voice hoarse. And there was a thump. I looked at my bed. There was nothing there. No blanket, no object I could have placed. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Not only was I talking to an invisible child, but I was comforting it. And it was getting into my bed, lying next to me. The thought of an unseen presence, a child, getting into my bed every night, asking for comfort and me willingly providing it, was a level of terrifying intimacy I couldn't process. It wasn't just a haunting anymore. It was an attachment, and I had no idea how to break it. The line between my waking and sleeping world was blurring, and I was starting to feel like I was losing control. The soft lullaby, the faint childlike whisper, the thump on the bed. This wasn't just a haunting. It was something far more personal, far more disturbing. I was comforting a ghost, and it was sleeping next to me. The thought made my skin crawl even now, hours after hearing the recording. Ollie was as shaken as I was. "This isn't just residual energy," he said, pacing my small living room. "This thing, it's interacting. It's intelligent. And it's attached to you." "But why me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why my apartment?" We tried to piece it together. Had I brought something into the apartment? Was there a history to this building? I lived in a modern building in Karachi. It wasn't an old, dusty mansion with a dark past. No strange antiques. I thought about every object in my room, trying to find a connection, but came up empty. Ollie suggested we talk to someone who knew about this stuff. Not just a friend, but someone who understood paranormal phenomena. He had a cousin, a distant one, who was into spirituality and old traditions. He'd seen her at family events, always quiet, observant. He wasn't sure how much she'd know about actual ghosts, but it was a shot. "She's a bit unconventional," Ollie warned, "but she's very perceptive, and she might have some ideas." The next day Ollie called her. He kept it vague at first, just saying I was having some unexplained sleep issues. She agreed to meet us at a quiet cafe in a few days. The waiting was agony. Every shadow in my apartment seemed to hold a secret. Every cool breeze felt like an unseen touch. I couldn't sleep without thinking about what was happening, but sleep was when it was most active. It was a vicious cycle of fear and exhaustion. That night, I debated turning off the camera. Part of me just wanted to bury my head under the covers and pretend it wasn't happening. But another part, the terrified but determined part, knew I had to keep recording. I needed to know more. I needed to understand what was sharing my bed. I set up the camera, the audio recorder, and even placed a small, old, worn teddy bear on the empty space beside me on the bed. A strange impulse. If it was a child, maybe it would appreciate it. Or maybe it was just my subconscious trying to offer comfort, even when awake. The thought was chilling. I managed to drift off, hoping for nothing but fearing everything. The morning came, a gray light filtering through my window. I shot out of bed, my heart hammering. The teddy bear was gone. It wasn't on the bed, it wasn't on the floor. It was nowhere. I frantically searched the room, then the apartment. Under the bed, in the closet, behind the armchair. Nothing. The teddy bear had simply vanished. Then I remembered the camera. With trembling hands, I retrieved the footage. Fast-forwarding through the early hours, I saw myself sit up as usual. I heard my voice, sleepy and soft. "Did you like it?" And then, clear as day, a child's faint, wispy voice, so close to the microphone it sent shivers down my spine, whispered, "Thank you." And then the sound of movement beside me. The distinct rustle of fabric. And the space beside me seemed to depress, as if someone had just placed something there. And then my hand reached out gently, as if stroking something. My lips moved again, though I couldn't quite make out the words. When I stopped the footage, I realized what the rustle was, what the depression on the bed meant. It hadn't just taken the teddy bear. It had brought something else onto my bed. Something I was stroking. Something that was now gone. And the terrifying realization was that it was something from its world. Something I couldn't see. My heart pounded. This wasn't just a child. This was a child with a connection to something else. And now it was bringing pieces of its world into mine. And the fact that the teddy bear was gone meant it had taken a piece of my world into its. The exchange was happening, and I was completely at its mercy. The vanishing teddy bear, the whispered thank you, the sensation of something unseen being placed on my bed. My mind was reeling. This spirit wasn't just passive or randomly manifesting. It was interacting, accepting gifts, and even, it seemed, reciprocating. The thought sent a fresh wave of terror through me. What kind of gift had it left me? And where was my teddy bear now? I told Ollie about the teddy bear. He was speechless. The disappearing object was a whole new level of paranormal activity. It moved beyond just sounds and unseen interactions to actual physical manifestation and removal. The meeting with Ollie's cousin Zara couldn't come soon enough. When we met her at the cafe, she was exactly as Ollie described. Quiet, with intelligent, observant eyes that seemed to take in everything. We chose a secluded corner, and I started from the beginning, trying to keep my voice steady as I recounted the sleepwalking, the camera footage, the whispers, the lullaby, and finally the teddy bear's disappearance and the feeling of something being placed on my bed. I showed her the key clips on my laptop. Zara watched the footage intently, her expression unreadable. When the clip of my hand reaching out and the faint thank you played, her eyes narrowed slightly. After I finished, she sat silently for a long moment, stirring her tea. "This is not a simple haunting," Zara finally said, her voice calm but firm. "This spirit, it is a child, and it is deeply attached to you." "But why me?" I asked, my voice cracking. "I don't understand." Zara looked at me, her gaze piercing. "Sometimes it's not about the place. It's about a resonance. A certain empathy, perhaps, that attracts a lost soul. Especially a child. You offered comfort, even unknowingly." She explained that the gifts and the taking of the teddy bear suggested a strong connection, an exchange. It wants to be seen, to be acknowledged, and it feels safe with you. That is why it comes to your bed. My stomach clenched. Safe? It's terrifying. To you, yes, Zara conceded gently, but perhaps not to it. It believes you are its friend, its comfort. She then asked a question that made my blood run cold. "Do you ever have dreams? Or thoughts, maybe about a small, distressed child? Perhaps one that is alone?" Thought back. The recent nightmares were always about burning rooms and sad faces, but they were disjointed, unclear. Before that, though, sometimes I'd have a vague feeling of sadness, a sense of something lost. I had always dismissed it as just a bad mood. But now, sometimes, I admitted, a general feeling of sadness, like an echo. Zara nodded slowly. "It is trying to communicate, to share its story. And now to be with you. This spirit is not malevolent in the way you might think. It is desperate, and perhaps it is lonely, but its desperation can become overwhelming. And its interaction, as you've seen, can cross lines that are not safe for the living." She suggested we try something different that night. Not to confront it directly, but to set a boundary. You must tell it firmly that you are not rejecting it, but that it cannot enter your bed. It cannot touch you, and it must not take things from your world, nor bring things from its world into yours. You must do this aloud, calmly, before you sleep. And record it. The idea of speaking directly to the invisible presence filled me with dread. But Zara's calm conviction and Ali's worried face told me this was the only way forward. I had to set the rules. Before this desperate, lonely child, whatever it truly was, became too much a part of my life. Zara's advice echoed in my head as I walked back to my apartment. You must tell it firmly that you are not rejecting it, but that it cannot enter your bed. It cannot touch you, and it must not take things from your world, nor bring things from its world into yours. It sounded so simple, yet the thought of speaking to an invisible entity, one that had been sharing my bed, was terrifying. Ollie came back with me, offering to stay the night in the living room for moral support. His presence helped, but the dread in my stomach was a cold, hard knot. I set up the sleep camera and the audio recorder again, making sure they were both perfectly positioned. This was going to be the most important recording yet. As I got ready for bed, I practiced the words in my head. Not rejecting, but boundaries. It felt absurd, like I was preparing to negotiate with a phantom. But Zara had been so serious, so calm. I had to trust her. I finally got into bed, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I took a deep breath, looked at the corner of the room where it usually appeared, and began to speak. My voice trembled at first, but with each word it grew a little steadier. "I know you're here," I started, my gaze fixed on the empty space. "And I know you're lonely. I understand that. But you can't come into my bed. You can't touch me. And you can't take anything from my room or bring anything from your world into mine. This is my space. I want to help you, but you have to respect my boundaries." The words felt strange, hanging in the still air of my bedroom. I tried to sound firm, but also compassionate, just as Zara had instructed. After I finished, I lay there, heart pounding, waiting for something, but there was nothing. No chill, no movement, no whisper. Just the sound of my own ragged breathing. Eventually, exhausted, I drifted off to sleep, clinging to Zara's words like a lifeline. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of immense relief. I was in my bed. The teddy bear was still gone, but nothing else had moved. The air felt lighter, less oppressive. Had it worked? Had Zara's advice actually made a difference? I practically leaped to the camera and recorder. Ollie was already awake, sitting on the sofa, looking anxious. "Well?" he asked, his eyes wide. I quickly downloaded the footage and audio. We fast-forwarded through the early hours, past my initial words setting the boundary. The camera showed me lying still for a long time. My heart started to beat a hopeful rhythm. Maybe it truly was over. Then around 3 a.m. my body stirred. I didn't sit up fully, just shifted, my head turning slightly towards the corner. My lips parted and a faint, sleepy mumble escaped. "Go home." I heard myself whisper on the audio, my voice tinged with a deep sadness. "Please, go home." There was a long silence on the recording. Only my breathing. Then, very faintly, a sound that made my blood run cold. It wasn't a whisper this time. It was a soft, drawn-out sob. A child's heartbroken sob, right next to the microphone. My eyes snapped open, my own throat tightening. Ollie leaned closer to the laptop, his face pale. The sob faded, replaced by what sounded like faint, retreating footsteps. Very, very faint, like a child running on soft carpet. And then silence. A profound, empty silence that stretched for the rest of the night. The sob, it was real. And the retreating footsteps. It had listened. It had understood. And it had left. But the sound of that heartbreak lingered, a sharp ache in my chest. I had finally set my boundaries, and the spirit had respected them. But at what cost? I had sent a lost, lonely child away. And the sound of its sorrow was something I knew would haunt me more than any physical manifestation ever could. I was safe, but the weight of that goodbye settled heavy on my soul. The apartment was silent. Truly silent. Not the suffocating quiet from when I first started sleepwalking, or the tense stillness when the invisible presence was there. This was an empty silence, like a void where something had been. The heartbreaking sob of that child echoed in my ears. A sound that haunted me more profoundly than any whisper or unsettling touch. I knew Ollie felt it too. He stayed another night just to be sure. We reviewed the footage again. The sleepwalking was gone. My body remained still in bed. The audio recorder picked up nothing but my breathing and the usual city hum outside. The immediate terror had lifted, replaced by a strange, hollow ache. In the days that followed, the exhaustion that had plagued me for weeks finally began to recede. My mind felt clearer, sharper. I wasn't waking up in strange places anymore. The feeling of being watched, that constant subtle unease, faded. My apartment truly felt like my space again, no longer shared with an unseen companion. But the teddy bear was still gone. I searched every inch of the apartment again, meticulously, hoping it had somehow just been misplaced. It wasn't. It had truly been taken. A piece of my world exchanged for what? I'll never know what object the child left on my bed, what unseen gift I stroked in my sleep before it, too, returned to its dimension. I saw Zara again a few weeks later. I told her everything, from the sobbing to the newfound peace. She listened, her perceptive eyes never leaving my face. "You did the right thing," she said gently. You set a boundary out of necessity but with compassion. That is why it understood and left. It was a lost soul, not a malicious one. It was clinging to the comfort you unknowingly offered. And when you set the boundary, it had to move on. But the sob, it sounded so heartbroken. I confessed, the memory still a sharp pang. Zara nodded. It was. It found a connection and it lost it. But sometimes spirits need to be encouraged to find their true rest. Perhaps you helped it take that step. Life slowly, steadily returned to a semblance of normalcy. I resumed my routine, my work, my social life. My friends, seeing me less exhausted and less frantic, slowly stopped asking about the sleepwalking camera incident, though Ollie and I shared knowing glances from time to time. I kept the sleep camera. It's still on my bookshelf, but I haven't turned it on since that last night. I don't think I ever will. I don't need to see what happens in my sleep anymore. I know. Sometimes late at night when the building is quiet, I think I hear a faint, soft hum. A lullaby carried on the breeze. So faint, so fleeting, it could easily be my imagination. But in those moments, I think of the child, the lost soul who once shared my bed, and the profound sadness of that final goodbye. The sleepwalking camera caught more than just my nighttime wanderings. It opened a window to a connection I never knew existed, a conversation with the unseen, and a goodbye that changed my understanding of loneliness, comfort, and the thin veil between our world and whatever lies beyond. I'm safe now, yes, but I'll never truly forget the invisible friend who once whispered, "Thank you," and shared my bed, even if only for a few terrifying nights.